The new channel. The new channel. Hashtag TNC Now.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following shows are those of the host, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel. Our passion transforms the community channel that sees all things new. My name is Jennifer Nuya, streaming from Cavite, Philippines, and you're watching Stories from the Fringe, Season 2, Episode 21. Let me know that you can hear me well by typing into the comments section where you are joining us today and what curiosity brings you to Stories from the Fringe. You can also use the same comment section to drop in your comments and ask your questions or whatever you would like to share with us. We are happy to know them. And if this is your first time tuning in to Stories from the Fringe, we aim to push for more diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in all aspects of our lives. We are committed to creating a world where individual differences like race, gender, ability, class, among others, are not only seen and understood, but also celebrated and empowered. We believe that we can all be a part of this collective vision. To make the most of our time together, we encourage you to turn off all distractions and prepare to take notes, mental or written, so that you can be fully engaged and immersed with our guest today, Lars Lin. With background as electronics and embedded SW engineer, long entrepreneurial experience and mindset combined with significant corporate experience, Lars operates effectively at all levels of the organization, in all cultures and industries. He loves creating, launching, and growing new products and services that deliver desirable human value in highly personalized ways while leveraging abundance-based business models and exponential tech. Lars, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here. And I also realized maybe just now when you introduced the values and the mission of the channel, how fully aligned I am with that. So I get why, you and I should be chatting here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled to be here with you, sharing this space with you. Dear viewers, for a brief background, Lars and I worked together, started working together 2 years ago. And he was our mentor when a group of Filipinos like myself, we tried to enter the XPPR prize competition. Well, we did well, in,
Yes.
in my opinion. Unfortunately, our entry did not make it to the final cut, but it was a beautiful experience. So thank you so much, Lars, for having not only a big heart, but of course, being generous with your wisdom, with your background and experience. with me and the other Filipinos in that group. And now Lars is will be sharing his background and experience with the rest of the viewers of Stories from the Fringe.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I just want to echo your sentiment there. I get my energy from the people I work with, and every time I engage with you and everybody else around you, that energy comes back. Everything I invest comes back 10x, right? And so it's always so worth it to pay forward and give back and support each other. So so with that, I think for the context of this conversation and for everybody to understand that, yeah, let me give a bit of insights into my background, and so we can then unfold any part of the story that everybody watching wants to hear more about. So I also wanted to echo the request to engage with us during the conversation here. I absolutely love that. So we can take this in any direction that seems relevant. So so let me give a bit of introduction, which serves as context for the work I'm doing today. Very much, even it may start many years back in the storyline. Um, so in terms of me, I'm an electronics engineer by education. I'm a transformation coach by choice and Danish, well, mainly by accident of birth, I guess. So in terms of very briefly about the professional side, the engineering part. Today I design and lead transformation projects in all sorts of organizations worldwide. Not least in the future of education, future of workspace. But I really started out in really nerdy R&D engineering jobs, focusing on algorithm design, on systems such as information systems and surveillance systems and the likes. I've really always been deeply fascinated by technology since childhood. And in the beginning, it was only about the technology. You reverse engineer exciting stuff to see how it works, and you keep studying and experimenting to figure this thing out. But then gradually, obviously, our eyes open up to more aspects of life. And for me, it was about, hey, there are actually users, end users, and partners that are using these technologies in different ways than I thought, and that became an eye opener. I started then to engage more with commercial sides and leadership sides of running a technology business. So in terms of the family side of things, which is super important to me, and I know it is for every Filipino as well, and I guess that's why we connect so well, amongst other things. So for me, actually, my personal life became also quite a pivotal point in my life when I became a father. And it's not to get deeply necessarily into a parenting conversation. That's not why I'm saying it. But I'm the father of two boys. They're 10 and 12. They are disruptors like that, and fascinated by technology. They mastered way better than I ever did, I think. But when I but when I became a dad, my point that I'm getting to now is that my kids I could see, have to go through the same educational journey that I've been through, probably at least for the first 10, 15 years, right? It's the same system that they would go through a K-12 experience. And honestly, I felt that experience to take forever, and I was super bored. And I was like, does it really have to take that many years to go through the essentials? If it does, okay, probably. But then something pushed me out of my comfort zone, which is pivotal to everything else I'm going to talk about and instrumental. So which is my son, who's now 12. It turns out that he's on the autism spectrum. Now, that suddenly explained why he couldn't thrive in a noisy classroom, often also smelling, right? He gets these sensory overloads easier than you and me, maybe. And then you just stop processing all the instructions that teachers are giving you. And then even you're a great learner, then things become very difficult. So not only did I have to consider, does this educational journey have to really take 10, 12, 15 years? Can it be done differently? But now actually we had to find another way of doing it, right? So it's just to explain why the future of education now became kind of the story of the rest of my life, and I couldn't be happier about finding my niche, my place to play. So I will be getting back to that more, obviously, or we will, I'm sure, in our conversation. So and I found out on this journey that we were not the only family that were living with a non-neurotypical learner, and maybe we all are. It's actually in our gene pool, right? So I never saw any difference between my son and me when people said, "Hey, don't you see that there's a different reaction to different stimuli?" And I was like, that's me. I was like, I don't see any problem here. That's been my life as well. So I felt comfortable that whatever you call me in terms of diagnosis will be fine. I mean, I'm fine with where I am in my life, right? So we'll be fine. But the system doesn't give us space to do things any differently, right? It's highly regulated. There's a national curriculum that you have to go through. You're expected to do it in a school, and so on and so forth. There's so many sides of what we call the educational immune system that really doesn't give much space and flexibility for doing things very differently. And that became a problem that I needed to start working on solving. And I was not alone. I've met hundreds and hundreds of families that were in exactly the same situation. Even they were living around the world. I've been traveling a lot on doing transformation projects in all sorts of places, which has been amazing always. But the most amazing part has been to tell my story and realize that so many people share this very same problem, and there are very few alternatives to how you can live your life and go through your own personalized educational journey. So we have to fix that. That's the problem that I'm here to solve, and we're not alone. So there are lots of us.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Lars. As I was listening to you, I remember my experience when I was studying. I'm not sure if I have mentioned it to you before, but when I was in grade one, oh, that was so many years ago, so many ages ago. My mother said when she talked to my first grade teacher declined to give me a report card. Here in the Philippines, we have our grading system 1 to 100. And she said that even if she would give me 65 as my grade, it would still not be enough. Like, short of calling me an idiot or a moron. So now looking back, with the many things that I have done through all the years, and I have this insatiable need to learn. I want to call myself a perpetual co-learner, because sometimes I feel, I don't know if you feel the same way, like you feel that you don't have enough time, enough energy, enough lifetime to read everything that you want to read and learn everything that you want to learn. And then I'm looking back, probably it was just my learning style was different from the teaching style of that teacher. That's why when it wasn't, there was a big disconnect She thought that the information being fed to me was just truncated, and she felt that I was stupid.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened to my daughter when she was also in grade one. She was enrolled in a different school,
Yeah.
different from where she is currently enrolled.
Yeah.
And the teacher also said the same thing, and I was thinking, okay, so I can see the pattern here. There must be something here. Probably the learning style of my daughter was the same as my learning style. And I also have, as you learn more about the different communication style,
Yeah.
you appreciate that probably the teacher also had a different communication style,
Mhm.
whereas I am an analytical communicator. And for the appreciation of our viewers, an analytical communicator communicates via facts, data. We are not trying to challenge you. We are not trying to pick a fight.
Yeah.
Perhaps I was a challenging student.
Yeah.
That did not fare well with my teacher, So I love it that you highlighted that there is a need to fix the broken educational system, because it is geared towards the neurotypical, it is geared towards the average,
Mm.
whereas we have many outliers, right? And now that I am learning more about myself and about my daughter, I am appreciating what you have just said, that we need to build communities around this and work together so that we can how can we say, take a dent
Yeah.
on that immune system of the educational system.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think this is why this story, although it's personal, but it resonates with so many people, and when you start telling it, it's kind of I feel that it opens many people's eyes to the fact that, hey, what if you tried, could you change your life so it accommodates your learning style and your needs, uh, more than if you accept that, hey, you have to go through this particular path in life and you have to accept a certain learning style which happens
Mhm,
in that classroom, etc. And
mhm,
this is not, so this is also, I wanted to share a few data points now that you share that you love data points, because I was trying to, I've been doing lots of research on this to find out how big is this problem really, right?
mhm,
And as far as I can tell from looking at the most recognized information sources that we probably have access to, it seems to me, and I'm getting a lot of support on this claim now, that probably about a quarter of the global population are non-neurotypical learners. It's 25% around that of
wow.
everybody on this planet that are non-neurotypical learners. Now, this includes, if you're not so familiar with that term, it includes autism, like in
Mhm,
our case, but it also includes like dyslexia,
mhm,
dysgraphia, and other, let's call it a learning style, right? Because
mhm,
I don't like to see it as a limitation. The world really sees it as, hey, that's your problem, that's your condition, you need to live with it, and we don't know how to support you. No,
mhm,
we got to look at it differently, because it's a quarter of the global population we're talking about here that are in trouble in a normal classroom if we put a child in a noisy classroom. And everybody, like, talked about average or normal, the normality curve that you gotta fix within or fit within a certain bracket on that curve. If you're an
mhm,
outlier, yeah, you may be ahead of us or you may be behind us right now, and tomorrow maybe you're a different place on the curve, but
mhm,
then we struggle to support you, right? And if your learning style is different, we also struggle to support you as an
mhm.
educational system. That's not good enough. and and
No, it's
and
not.
And another quick point. So we often talk about how the education system is broken, but it's actually been designed this way, right?
Mhm.
Intentionally, for the industrial age. And I'm not going into the history behind it, obviously, but it's a long time ago that we needed this way of mass educating young people to
Mhm.
learn the same skills in the same time, in the same way. And 10 years later, you need to pass a particular test, and get over a certain bar, a certain threshold to pass and to be able to move forward into your next level. and
Mhm.
and this is just not good enough anymore. That's not what we need today in the world that has changed dramatically and will keep changing. So it's just to state those facts for us to understand the size of this problem and how many people that are probably not feeling well or doing well in the traditional education system.
Mhm. Yes, and that's precisely what Educate for Life is currently doing. Can you please share more about the Educate for Life?
Of course, it is another of my babies, and so I can probably not stop talking about it once you get me started. But it's up to you to stop me. It's just one more thing, by the way, which is also the foundational value for Educate for Life, which I will
Mhm.
introduce in a second. Well, that this is not about how smart your children are. It's
Mhm.
actually how they are smart, right? You gotta look at children in a different through a different lens, in a different
Mhm.
light, right? We need to stop seeing them as being all the same, but they're all different. We are all different, and that's the beauty of it. You spoke about diversity in your introduction, and how we're different, and how that makes us so powerful when we create new teams to solve big challenges. And
Mhm.
solving big challenges in diverse teams is why we created Educate for Life. So Educate for Life is, I've since learned that there's a term, a description of what this is, which is it's a virtual community of practice, a virtual community of practice. And this is well documented as a way to connect online and work
Mhm.
entirely virtual together. Even we come from different places we wouldn't normally meet, or certainly not work together. But now we do, around a common interest or a particular challenge that we are all interested in working on solving together. And
Mhm.
and Educate for Life is such a virtual community of practice, which is focused on the future of education for all the reasons we have been talking about already, my personal story and everybody else that have similar reasons or different reasons for joining, but they see a need to experiment. This is mostly about experimentation when it's about the future, because the
Mhm.
future is not something we're just sitting around waiting for to happen. It's something we think we can impact and influence and probably create if
Yeah.
we make a big effort. And that's what everybody does.
Mhm.
So this came around in 2018, when I was kind of at the peak of stress with, like, we cannot get this school experience to work out for us. And I
Mhm.
was literally flying out of, I live in Copenhagen here. I was near the airport because I used
Mhm.
it a lot. So I was flying out on red eye flights and coming back on other red eye flights to sort out things in the school, or try as a parent. And and I talked about this in another community, which is today see as kind of a mother community of Educate for Life, which is called OpenEXO. And we may want to paste a link to OpenEXO as well. It's a global transformation community or ecosystem. I think around 17,000 people now. Um,
Mhm.
and I talked about these challenges in the education space, and people were immediately responding very positively and saying, "Yes, if you want to do something about this, I'm with you. I want to join. And so now also that was a nice push to myself to kind of get started and walk the talk and do something about it. And the tools that I use every day in organizations to help them transform are sprints, and these kind of processes that are very limited in time, and you need to accomplish a lot of experimentation in very short time. And I decided to run a sprint using the same methodologies that we use in what we call the EXO sprint, exponential organization sprint, to move away from scarcity and how we think we have to do things in the old way. And now we embrace abundance. There's a world full of awesome people that would be willing to help if we ask for help. And there's so much resourcefulness and resources, but we need to think differently and work differently to get there. So I started hosting and facilitating these sprints in the Educate for Life community. And people joined, and we have taken many awesome initiatives through that process by now.
Just to clarify, these sprints are for the parents and the other community members, or have you also done sprints for the children?
So we have done all of this and more. We also actually work with educational institutions, which actually also makes me very happy that systems that are very hard to change, they themselves know it, and they also come to join to explore other scenarios to what education could look like. So we are being sponsored very often by schools and universities and others. But we see all sorts of amazing people. Speaking of diversity, you will never find a more diverse mix when you join a group anywhere, I claim, than in our group. So we have lots of parents, and when we speak of professionals, many are parents as well, right? So you wear several hats of interest when you join. Also with children. And obviously, when we are designing a better future for children, you gotta include the children. If we design for, let's technically talk about an end user group, you gotta have the users at the table, and actually, the more they are involved, the better. The better you actually get an outcome that they wanna use. They really want that future. So yes, children are at the heart and center and at the table and involved in these processes. Yeah.
That reminds me of a quotation: just do your thing and your tribe will follow or will find you. So I believe that when people, they find you, you're visible on social media, and you share all these wonderful things that you're doing in the educational space, then they have this, they are drawn to you, they are pulled to your initiatives. And I love it that you are also having children participants, because I agree with you, it's for them, so they should be also calling the shots. They should have a voice in these things that we are doing for them. If I'm not mistaken, one of the largest untapped market that we have today are children, and they are geniuses.
Yeah.
They are geniuses until they are educated. That's unfortunate, right? Because sometimes education teaches you, okay, so this is the only thing that you can do right now. You cannot read beyond your level. I remember when I was 8 years old, I was already reading novels, and people couldn't understand why I was reading novels, and they couldn't also understand why I was reading encyclopedia. But because I've already finished reading all my textbooks. So what else would I do? I was totally bored, right? So unfortunately, sometimes I want to think that they are well-meaning people, but unfortunately, that their limitations, they also post it unintentionally on children.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll go for a short break, Lars. I
Yeah.
am totally loving this conversation. And then later, when we come back, Lars will share about another baby that he will be releasing soon. Stay tuned. TNC is a live stream platform of online shows for people on the go. Please watch all our shows as seen on the screen. Imagine having your own show, your own playlist, your own content, but we make it easier for you. TNC aims to transform the lives of our viewers through engaging, authentic, and original content. Our vision is to become a global 24/7 live stream channel that showcases Filipino talent, global influencers, cultural intelligence, and ingenuity. I also encourage you to continue supporting Stories from the Fringe, live streamed every Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. You can watch live or on replay via Facebook or YouTube. Follow us on IG, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just search hashtag TNC Now. For sponsorships, please email now at thenewchannel.com or send us a DM. Enjoy these life-changing shows because we made them just for you. Before we went on a break, we were sharing how Lars and his community created Educate for Life, aimed at helping uh, the neuroatypical have a different avenue for learning, since the current educational system is not designed for them. All right. So can we call back Lars?
I'm right here. Woo.
Hi, Lars again. Now, I would like to share that some of the children, they have been able to do amazing things because of the things that you have been doing. Please tell us about one of the children writing a book and also creating a game. How old are they?
So, you mentioned earlier that kids are geniuses, and I totally subscribe to that statement. At the same time, I think we as adults keep underestimating kids, right? They do live in a different world than we do. They decide to do things differently because they often know what's right, and they know what's right for them and also for us, actually, from a very early age. So we see kids showing up because they want to, from the age of typically 8, sometimes a little bit younger than that. Um, obviously, we often need to find out where to get you involved, a bit depending on your age. There's a difference between being 12 and being 6. So but they all show up, and with the moment they realize that they are actually empowered, and that, hey, here's a tribe that actually listens to them. And it takes a while also for adults, that, hey, to realize, hey, I'm amongst people that actually listen to me, they see me. But the moment we have that realization, you see the lights turn on, and you feel the motivation of that human being go through the roof, and then a spark has been ignited that you cannot put out again. And that's when you see one initiative leading to another. For kids, it's often in very fast iterations, sometimes on a minute by minute basis. You get a better idea and you're ready to jump at it. And that's how play works, and why play is so important. So that was a long answer to your great short question there about kids.
Yeah. I remember we always ask our children, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what do you want to be when you grow up? Perhaps it's about time that we ask them, what do you want to do now? What do you want to be now? And we will be surprised by the answers. I know some children, they're already creating metaverses. They're also doing NFTs and crypto. They're already doubling in cryptocurrency. And I just saw on my news feed someone on LinkedIn. She already did a campaign because she said that she wanted to do her further studies, and she was at around, if I'm not mistaken, around 13 years old. She already created also a community for the youth, and they're already creating live streams where they invite guests and speakers to teach leadership skills to children. Imagine that.
Totally. And it happens all the time. And if we don't know, it's because we are not paying attention. That's really the only thing. And so if the moment we start paying attention and listening and getting involved a little bit, and then we realize that they are way ahead of us, and we should up our game to be there to open whatever few doors that we may be able to open for them. but let them design that future. They're really good at it. And,
Mhm.
and we just sometimes forget that and underestimate the power and the dynamics of a group of children. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if we cannot be involved, at least get out of their way.
Get out of the way, exactly. Which fortunately we often are when we're not paying attention. We don't know what our kids are doing online. Sometimes when we find out, we're grateful we didn't know, but there's a lot of exciting things happening there.
Mhm.
And we all have many stories to tell from these surprises that blew us away, and like, wow, have you been doing this? I had no idea, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So before we went on a break, we mentioned about the release of new baby. Can you please share a little bit about it?
Yes, so we are making a lot of new babies in terms of new initiative. So there's a book in the making, and it's been coming for a long time. So I mentioned that I'm designing and running transformation projects, and which essentially is about imagining new paradigms in our
Mhm.
world, in our society, in our organizations, and our educational institutions. And when we are imagining new scenarios, new paradigms, that essentially is about questioning what we have always taken for granted, right? Our old
Mhm.
assumptions. And
Mhm.
in that process, we start to see uh, ourselves and our own capabilities and our own shortcomings and everything else in a different light. We see things through a different lens, and now we can begin to imagine a better future. And then it's up to us to decide, is that the future we want to start creating? And if it is, we can put together a process to get us there. And that's that's been the body of my work since at least 2016, when I was invited by the open exit community, which I mentioned before. That kind of, it was mostly a book club around the book at the time, around the book Exponential Organizations by Selim Ismail and his co-authors, which describes how the new breed of organization in the 21st century operate. They're able to deliver a positive impact to the world, and at the same time scale much faster, deliver the impact way faster than traditional organizations. And I kind of adopted that approach, the methodologies, and I started to coach leaders in all sorts of industries through these transformation process. And that experience is what I'm baking into a new book. So
Mhm.
so and you're about transformation as well. So I know we understand each other when I say transformation is hard, and it's mostly hard for the human beings involved, especially for adults like us. We think change is hard, and we're asking everybody involved to be willing to change who we are as an organization, as an institution, or as a community, change dramatically, right? If we imagine a new future, that means we will be somebody else. We will see ourselves differently and maybe deliver different value.
Mhm.
And that excites some people, and it also puts a lot of fear and
Yeah.
uncertainty in us at the same time.
Mhm.
So when you work with an organization, and this is describing everybody I've been working with, everybody, no exception, then in the beginning we are questioning, hey, we will never be able to change, right? So we
Mhm.
don't think this will ever work. Okay, but once we get started and start to imagine a better future, that hey, if we design this future and we start transforming, we can have a way better life. We can have a way better educational path, or way better life or better organization, a better business, better anything. And then we get excited, we get motivated, and we get on we get started on this emotional roller coaster, which it really is to transform. And those experiences what I've been capturing in this book, which I call the mindful business transformation. The subtitle is Making Minds Matter in Exponential Organizations.
Okay. Director Janine will show us the book cover.
There, oh wow, there it is, like magic. This is awesome. I need this back office support in my everyday life. This is awesome. Thank you so much for exactly. This is what I really want to ask everybody to help me with better visuals for this book cover. But this is what it looks like right now. Yeah.
Mhm. I believe it's beautiful. The book cover. It pretty encapsulates what is inside. Making minds matter in exponential organizations. Yes, I believe that as we move towards the fourth industrial revolution, we also need to humanize organizations. It's not only about machines, but the human minds. Would you agree?
Yes. So actually, we probably need to relearn what humanity is able to do and how important humanity is. Technology should be maybe an enhancer and an enabler for the better sides of humanity. So I hope we will be in control of technology, not the other way around. That's for us
Mhm.
to take ownership of. But both components are here to stay. We will coexist with technology from here on and for the rest uh, of 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 uh, of the planet's existence, right? But humanity
Mhm.
is what makes it worthwhile living. That's
Mhm.
really what we want to protect and preserve and improve, and not least our mindsets. And the mindset
Mhm.
is really what transformation is about. Everything else is just technicalities and
Mhm.
and models and etc. But what we really transform is mindset, the mindset
Mhm.
of the people involved and the people around us. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for underscoring that the technology should be an enabler, an enhancer, and not a replacement for humans. I think that's where some of the resistance is coming from, because some people, they're afraid that as we move on to digitalization and all these things, that AI will replace them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's because we don't necessarily fully understand what AI is, what AI is capable of doing, and what AI is not capable of doing, maybe yet. So it creates some uncertainty, and that can deliver some anxiety as well, and many, many other feelings and excitement.
Mhm.
So what does this really mean? And nobody really knows, which is why I think we need to gain a better understanding. Everybody of us, no matter what we do for a living, what business we're in, uh, also the children, not least. And this is part of transformation, is to get this better understanding of what
Mhm.
technology is able to do, just like what are we able to accomplish if we improve our mindset, right? And
Mhm.
that is maybe more relatable for many, that hey, if we're optimistic in the morning, just or if we're not, just meet with Jennifer and you will be optimistic after that experience.
Mhm.
But not everybody can call you every morning, Jennifer. So we have other ways to improve our mindset, but we also need to work with technology and get an understanding of that. And we work with
Mhm.
children and with schools to help them gain this understanding and experiment with
Mhm.
technology so we can apply it for positive impact rather than suddenly being disrupted by it in ways that we don't appreciate. Yeah.
Mhm. Top of mind, can you think of one case study in your book that shows an organization or an individual which is or who is resistant to change, and you were able to shift the mindset from scarcity mindset to abundance based mindset?
Yes, I just wanna add a few kind of preventing factors, things that prevents us from taking this. It's a bit of a leap of faith as well,
Mhm.
that we kind of let go of our desire to control. And you have to jump in really, and
Mhm.
really discover what this can do for you. And But the moment this happens, the moment that you let go of your old belief systems that we can probably not change, that moment is when you get this sudden boost of new beliefs and new excitement and new energy, and
Mhm.
then you work like crazy to make it happen.
Mhm.
And before that moment, you don't, right? You kind of hold yourself back and you criticize others. That, for a coach like me, that's very easy to observe and see when you get to that inflection point, that transformative point. And now you get to work on a whole different objective, which is no longer to make us work with the mindset, but now it's about designing that desirable future. And
Mhm.
I can think of definitely um, cases. Let me take my own son for a second, because then it stays in the family. But also um, my 12-year-old, which I've mentioned a couple of times already. He's um, eh, other kids that he has been working with through our programs. They started to be very interested in writing, in
Mhm.
writing their own books, and that was not of interest to my son at all, right? He
Mhm.
wanted to do other things. That didn't spark anything in him at the moment. Until he started to build this. It was like a bit like a metaverse. He's a game developer, right, at the age of 12. No need to wait until you're 25, by the way. Get started to live and breathe your passions, right? That's my call to action number one. But so then one day he comes to show me this kind of virtual environment that he's been creating, and it was
Mhm.
a virtual library. And um, and uh, and then he told me that you cannot have a virtual library with no books on the shelf. And there was no way he could get existing books into that library. He hadn't yet developed that, right? Which makes a lot of sense. So he actually wrote two books, and I didn't know about it at all, right? He had written two books, so he would have books on that shelf in that library he had created. And uh, and and now it's like a natural thing for him to write, and he loves it. And that was a very transformative point in time, and he had a need to write, and that created the desire to learn and to do. And that's also, by the way, how I would like to see the future of education actually operating. That you inspire and motivate the individual human being, and once you're inspired and motivated enough, and you start taking action, then you realize what you need to learn to actually do what you desire to do. And now you start learning on your own, and you start doing, for example, you may start to read or write, if that's what you need to learn, and you take action. And life is so much easier for teachers and parents and others around you. Now the child starts to demand support in learning this stuff, that if you give them homework and say you need to write this for tomorrow, is the worst ever thing you can ask from your child, right? They will
Mhm.
object and try to avoid and procrastinate, like we do when we are being asked to do things we don't like to do. So that was a small but and personal example, but I see the same in also large corporations, in professional teams that are going through a similar journey.
Mhm.
That they keep holding back and they don't really want to do it until they realize what they can accomplish by doing it. And now suddenly they get things done in 24
Mhm.
hours, right? And then there's nothing holding them back, and that's interesting.
Mhm. That's impressive, Lars. Thank you for sharing. I can only imagine the many possibilities of that metaverse, that virtual library. Perhaps your son can collaborate with the different children authors around the world.
It's is easier now than ever before, isn't it? Thanks to technology. How easy isn't it that you and I are chatting here today? Obviously, with great support from your team on the technical side, but it's not that hard for kids as well to connect with
Mm-hmm.
peers around the world. And so that's all you need to be doing, is to connect them, and they will find great ways of making things happen. I know,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen this every day for the past couple of years at least. And it gives me hope and confidence in our future, that this
Mm-hmm.
is possible. I just wanted to mention one thing, speaking of this, which I've been hearing myself say a lot in the past month. So one thing that excited me when we were kind of all hit by COVID, right, in these lockdown periods 2 years ago, that was not exciting. That was terrible, and many
Mm-hmm.
terrible things were part of that. But one thing that then excited me in those dark periods were the fact that many schools were not actually, they were figuring out how can they work with their students online when they're home,
Mm-hmm.
but we could easily connect children with other children, and keep them motivated and engaged and meeting new friends, and sometimes doing things that were not school related also when they were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do homework, right? But that's a side note. But what I have started to realize is there's an urgency around us starting to connect kids in other cultures, in other countries. Forget about language barriers; they really don't exist. They make things a little more difficult, but technology is going to fix that, and kids are really good at picking up new languages. So don't worry about language barriers. Just start connecting. And you know, the unfortunate and sad reasons for why this is so important is, well, we've been in lockdown for several years in most countries, and kids have not been exposed to other cultures and other mindsets and other ways of seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
Neither have we, maybe, except in online meetings. The kids didn't do those online meetings. So, how do we get kids exposed to the fact that other people are new friends you haven't met yet? They are your new collaborators, your new friends. You can play with them, you can study with them, you can work with them in the future, right? They're friends. They want the same from life that we do, and all you need to do is meet them to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch the news, other people seem to be enemies and not willing to do trade with you or whatever it may be, right? There are lots of
Mm-hmm.
bad news, but and that's also part of reality. But the real reality that is important for our kids to understand is the world is generally good. Everywhere I've been traveling, I'm met by wonderful people who are hosting me, who are so helpful, and we always establish great collaboration
Mm-hmm.
after meeting. I want kids to do the same, so they understand the world is good, the world is full of opportunity, and we shouldn't lock ourselves down except when needed due to pandemics. But generally, let's be open to collaborate and be friends. And there's an urgency around this, which
Mm-hmm.
I've started to realize. So that it gives me an extra boost of energy to do these things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for emphasizing that Humanity is at its core beautiful, good, benevolent, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the reason also why I seldom watch the news, because some news agencies, they try to sensationalize, they try to emphasize what is bad, what is not good in the world. So don't believe that there is a lot of positivity in the world.
Yes, thank goodness for that, right? And there are definitely lots of bad things happening, but we need to find other sources of information so we
Mhm.
get to understand what's also the truth, which is populations everywhere are good people, and all you need to do is meet them, and then you will find out. And that's an opportunity that we have to give our kids, so they themselves can make this positive discovery, and then they will take care of the rest. Together they make amazing things like we talked about, because they can and because they want to. We just need to open a few doors. And one of those doors, speaking of metaverses, is, kids, when they do want to meet online, mostly they can only either do it through gaming. Game
Mhm.
universes can are not always that friendly, and you don't always endorse everything that's happening there when you see what's going on in the chats and everything. And the other part maybe be multiverses and virtual environments designed for adults, and very often our kids are exposed to activities that only a few adults actually appreciate. The rest of us think that's not a place for kids to go. So we need to design again our digital world so it accommodates the needs of children. It also prioritizes the safety of
Mhm.
children. They can do what's right for them in a
Yes.
safe, trusted environment. That's missing big time, the way I see it, and that's also something we are working on. So this is an open invitation to join us, to be part of that work as well, to design the online worlds so they are a better fit, a better match, more suitable for our youngest generations. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, can you please invite them to follow you on social media? How can they support you? How can they follow know more about the work that you're doing, Lars?
Absolutely. What The best way to do this is really to get on our Educate for Life website, um, and we can post the link here again. I'll type it in as well if we need it. So because that we are hosting these, I call them discovery events. Discovery
Mhm.
events is really about discovering pretty much everything we've been discussing in this conversation, and more, and also experience what it feels like to be working on these activities and be part of it, and not read about changes for the better, but actually be part of co-creating them. So it's very simple and it's free. You can register on Educate for Life for the next discovery event. That means you'll get an invitation. That's all. Doesn't hurt, and you get an invitation to join a totally free uh, discovery event where we discuss these things, and when then you can decide uh, where you are excited about getting involved, if you like what you hear and see, right? Otherwise, yeah, you will have our full support and love in transitioning to other things, but people tend to stick around and actually get really active in
Mhm.
uh, in creating something often that solves their own personal problems, but problems that we realize that thousands, sometimes millions of people share those problems. They're huge problems, and and people in our world generally are struggling to start working on solving them in a different way. We just believe that things have to be that way. So this
Mhm.
paradigm shift is mainly what we focus on. How do we design new new paradigms where you forget all about the old assumptions, the old ways. Maybe for a period of time we have to, keep doing certain things because it's regulated or for other reasons. But over time we are able to ramp up on parallel activities that can then over time introduce new paradigms where you are able to live in different ways, in more desirable ways, and educate yourself in new ways, live your life, do business in new ways with new people, and all these things that many actually desire. So you need to join to figure out what this means to you, and where you can get excited, and then it's easier than ever before to actually form a team with like-minded people, usually from very different places on our planet, that joins for the same reasons, and who gets excited about the same thing, and then you get started. And bring your kids, by the way, right? That's important. Yeah. If they want to. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Lars. I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. I did not realize it's already 1 hour.
Time flies. So
Yes, time flies when you're enjoying yourself.
it absolutely does. Yes, I've certainly enjoyed this, Jennifer. It's great conversation. I hope we've been able to inspire somebody to not just necessarily accept things that we struggle with, but that we uh, get together with like-minded people to challenge our assumptions and look at those challenges differently, and then make a decision to try to build a world that's better.
Yeah, you can also follow Lars via LinkedIn. We are also dropping the link to his LinkedIn account.
Yes,
Thank you,
please.
Lars, and thank you to King Gonzalez, Christine Cruz, Richelle Gamba, and also thank you to Celine Bautista Nuya for always choosing to spend your Thursday mornings with us. So, dear viewers, thank you for choosing to stay with Lars today with stories from the Fringe. And if you love today's session, we encourage you to invite your loved ones, family, friends to join us next Thursday, June 9th, same time, same digital channel, so that you can again be inspired. And let's together create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive world for us all. Have a good day. Have a good rest of your day or evening, depending where you are in the world. God bless everyone. Thank you, Lars.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer and team.